We return back here live on Friday for spot on sports content. Back here with the podcast, your host Tony Monk. Listen, guys, a lot of things happened this week. Obviously, we're talking about free agency, but more so with the whole thing surrounding the Max Crosby news. Obviously, on Monday, uh, the Raiders agreed to a deal with the Baltimore Ravens for the Ravens to send two first round picks. And unfortunately, probably less than 24 hours later, it came back that Max Crosby had failed his physical. So the Ravens reneged on the trade and sent Max Crosby on a plane right back to Las Vegas. So I have a story here on the Athletic written by Jeff Zavik. He talks, kind of gives some details as far as what was going on, not only for myself but for you guys too, that want to know what exactly happened as to why Max Crosby ended up back with the Raiders. And Bordy McBoard is going to be coming back in a little bit to help out it. But for now, the story surrounding Max Crosby goes as follows. Again, the story is from the Athletic. Ravens, who agreed to send two first round picks to the Las Vegas Raiders for Crosby last Friday, brought the 28-year-old into town for a physical Tuesday. However, according to the most released sources, the Ravens informed the Raiders they couldn't go through with the deal after reviewing the results for Crosby's physical. Crosby had surgery to repair a torn meniscus in his knee back in January. All trades are contingent on the players involved passing the physical. During his news conference, DaCosta um, didn't mention anything about the physical or specific medical issues involving Crosby that concerned the team. DaCosta confirmed the Ravens had Crosby in the building Tuesday, but couldn't complete the process of the trade. They were really excited about having Max on the team. One of the favorite players in the league. It's devastating for DaCosta. That trade couldn't happen. So joining me on this is my good friend Andrea Bordy McGord. Andrea, I can't
Ooh,
say we've ever seen anything like this happen in the where a player seemingly is on his way to join a team, and then
yeah.
all of a sudden that's no more because you failed your physical due to surgery. Um, where do we start with what happened? Everybody, well, majority of teams was in line to join the Max Crosby sweepstakes. Obviously, the Ravens were the higher bidder, and now he's seemingly back with the Raiders, and they're willing to keep him amongst the other 15 guys that they also brought in through free agency. Uh, Bordy, what the hell happened?
Man, that long pause where you were gathering yourself is exactly how this whole situation feels like, right? It's a lot to deal with. And not only for the Raiders, obviously, we just talked about it last segment, talked about how many players they acquired in free agency. They anticipated that Max Crosby, a top of the line player, top five in his positions, certainly when it comes to money, uh, definitely thought that he was out the door. And when you trade away somebody like that in your young team, not only do you anticipate that your books will be free, but then you also anticipate that you'll have more picks. The Ravens had the 14th pick in the first round of this draft, and then they assumed they would have gotten the first round for next year's draft. But it's in the fact that the Ravens obviously promised to trade away two of their picks that I feel like this really relies in, and also another player too, Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson, as you know, the Bengals uh, edge player that for years has wanted to leave that organization, and the Bengals just not have let him go. He's wanted to get paid a lot more over the course of the years, and this free agency, his market was relatively quiet, while at the same time the Ravens were courting Max Crosby. Now, potentially, and not potentially, it seems more than likely they realized that Hendrickson wasn't going to cost as much. And so they ended up, hey, since Max, he quote unquote failed his physical, for me, this feels like you knew he was coming off of a knee injury. You knew that he probably wasn't going to look as polished now, but in a couple months, that's a different situation. You knew that he was going to take some time to bounce back. In my opinion, though, it's the Ravens that got cold feet and realized let's maximize the market because that's what Eric DaCosta and crew, they have a money ball mentality. They want to get the most for the least, right? That's why they held off so long with Lamar Jackson's contract, right? And they've always played it safe when it comes to not going after big free agents or, even big trades like the one in Maxx Crosby. So I feel like they got cold feet, realized why trade two picks for a guy who isn't perfectly healthy right now, and why not get Trey Hendrickson, who we thought was going to get a lot more money, earn a lot more money. Well, guess what? He's a lot more cheap than Crosby is right now, and you don't have to send off the two picks for him. But I feel like if this happened with any organization other than the Ravens, the media would honestly go after the Ravens a lot more. But because of that built-in trust with that organization, we aren't going to attach nearly as much scrutiny as we probably should. And for Matt Crosby, I know this hurts the most. And honestly, the Raiders team too.
Yeah. Yeah. Now the rumors that we were gonna get Crosby and also try to court Trey Hendrickson and then make those guys
Yeah,
our two
right.
defensive ends. Sure, and it's just rumors, right? And
Yeah,
I
right.
doubt that was the case. Seemingly that you're not going to put in over nearly $100 million into the defensive end position,
Mm-mm.
just so you can better about yourself when you now dealing with a 29-year-old and a 31-year-old pass rusher, respectively.
Right.
My thoughts on this was I think with the Ravens, they were looking at both Hendrickson and Max, and it was kind of one of these 1A, 1B things. What's the cheaper option? Which way do we want to go? Do we want to give our two first rounds for Crosby, or do we want to give Trey Hendrickson $60 million guaranteed, which is what they ended up doing?
Mm-hmm.
I think this was one of the weirder things to
Right.
happen. And obviously, I know, like you said, that the league would have definitely came down harder on the Ravens for that because hey, if the deal breaker for a trade between players is a physical, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why was this initiated even from the Raiders side at this time? Now, I guess it's
Yeah.
not up to them to say, hey, we have nothing to do with this guy passes his physical or not because we're trying to trade him. But where is the due diligence anywhere between these conversations where it said, hey, he just had a physical, he just had a surgery back in January, which is just 2 months ago. In less than
Yeah.
2 months' time, that his healing table has started. Why are we initiating this trade? And on top of that, from the Raiders standpoint, why are you guys fishing this guy when it may have been known that he wasn't going to pass his physical to begin with?
Yeah, and that's where I feel like we give a lot of built-in trust to the Ravens, right? Because obviously we're assuming because the deal didn't go through that he wasn't as healthy as what the Raiders led on. But as you just suggested, Tony, how healthy can somebody 2 months post injury? How healthy can they really be, honestly? So for the Ravens to initiate this deal for two first round picks for somebody who just had surgery 2 months ago, you had to have also known the fact that he wasn't perfectly healthy. That's why I really feel like this is a looking at a value situation, and we're just giving so much benefit of the doubt to the Ravens rather than the Raiders. There are a lot of times that we do have teams where listen, you do have to pass a physical in general in order for most of these trades to go through. But there have been times where somebody is quote unquote less than healthy is traded and assumed to be healthy once the season starts because we still have 4 long months until we even start to get into training camp, right? So obviously today's injury isn't going to look the same in a couple months. This really screws over the Raiders, though. You talk about a team that thought that they were going to not only get first round picks, but then also too were going to free up their books in considerable ways, right? That's why they went after so many players in free agency. And obviously now they're stuck in a bind to where they said, yeah, we're going to keep Max, but unless Max asks for less money or restructures his contract considerably, they're not going to be able to afford him. And then now you look at it where prior to this Ravens kerfuffle, they were in the market for 2 first-round picks. Now we're to the point to where they're probably not even going to get one. Maybe they can get two. Who knows with this situation? I really feel like, again, um, 2 months ago, he had surgery. You knew he wasn't going to be as complete as a player as he probably will be in another 4 months when training camp starts. So that's where value comes into play, and the Ravens' money ball technique, trying to get as maximum value as possible. And because historically the Raiders have not been a great organization, we place a lot of blame and onus onto them when I feel like the Ravens were honestly probably just being a little bit cheap, like they have a history of doing. And because of that, now Maxx Crosby and the Raiders are in a bind in their future. And I'm not sure what the best play for their future is going to be, Tony, to be honest.
Yeah, the money situation there can definitely be something that's super complex because now you're on the books for not only Max, but all of these guys that you originally intended to bring or did bring in from a free agency standpoint. But I guess now we talk about the Raiders with Max Crosby and the team and or defense that they will be with him. I guess the underlying question is do you still look to shop Crosby if he
Yeah.
doesn't agree to a restructure or something like that, and then say, hey, maybe around week 6, when the trade windows open up, we try to shop him again. But my question is, and I'm asking 3 questions in one, right? What if the Raiders are successful around this time? Do you still
Yeah.
go ahead and just say, all right, Max, we still can't afford you, or we still didn't agree to things? Ahead and go, and does that put you behind the 8 ball at this time in the AFC, getting rid of a star-studded pass rusher that's obviously going to give you an edge over a lot of
Yeah.
different teams on defense. Now, Max Crosby says, "Hey, I'm a Raider, ready to get to work." The Raiders say, "Hey, he's a Raider, we're going to keep him." But
Mhm.
obviously, the contract issues still linger. But what type of team are you going to be to just say we're going to get rid of one of the best pass rushers in the game?
Yeah, this is where you look at teams. I wouldn't have minded, obviously the Bills went ahead and got Bradley Chubb, but this would be a situation where a team like them, the Patriots, I know your Cowboys, were also in the market for Maxx Crosby before this kerfuffle happened. And now that this has happened, it depends on what the rest of the NFL world kind of looks at this situation as. Do we have a lot of benefit of the doubt on the Ravens? And do we say, hey, he is probably damaged goods? If they don't want to trade money for, trade all that talent for him, can we get him for way cheaper, right? Can the Cowboys
Yesterday's
now?
price isn't today's, Bordy, and I
It
think
isn't
that needs to
today's
be said
price, right?
that the next time that the Raiders do attempt to trade Crosby, that's
Yeah.
not 2 first round picks. Like,
Nope.
I'm sorry. Like, I was already against the fact of giving a guy that was 29 years old and I'm
Hmm.
giving you 2 first round picks. This guy, and we can, hey, his pass rush win rate is great. He's good against the run. The pressure numbers are there, but he's not Miles Garrett. He's not
Yeah.
T.J. Watt. He's not Micah Parsons. He's
Hmm.
Max Crosby. And for better or for worse, that's still really, really good. Don't get me wrong. If you trade him to a team, whether he was with the Ravens, Dallas, the Patriots, he would have been a factor, but he's not the guys that are in front of him, and especially at his age. Now Miles is older. TJ Watt's probably around that same age, but they're clearly better than he is. So I would
Hmm.
imagine that the next time that the Raiders do is say, "Oh, who's lobbying to try to get this guy?" I don't think any team should be trying to say, "Oh, he's 2 first round picks." anymore.
No, no, now the market, yesterday's price is in today's price, and today's price is a lot lower, right? It's like the opposite of the oil market right now. Prices are going down. The price of the brick has gone down considerably. So that's really screws over the Raiders too, because now instead of building towards your future with 2 first rounders, now you're looking at it, who's going to sell off their 27 pick? Probably not a lot of people, unless it's probably going to be a fourth round and below. And if you're even able to get a first rounder, because as you talked about, like Max Crosby, while healthy, is a different conversation than Max Crosby coming off of an injury with his age, right? He is probably still like one of the top 5 guys if he's healthy, but if he's not and he's older, then you're looking at him probably being in that top 15-ish market when it comes to just amount of price that you're willing to pay for. It's not like NBA free agency where the price of the number ones keep on rising. You have to package more and more for, less and less talent. No, you still have to give a considerable amount for somebody, even at the edge position. So we're probably going to look like, can they even get a one? It's a conversation for this. And if you're the Raiders and you're in that situation, you do have a young quarterback, right, in Fernando Mendoza, in which you do want to build talent around him, but maybe it will be beneficial to have an edge rusher in that unit. Obviously, depends on how Max Crosby feels about this. He talked about how much he liked being a Raider, but will he not? Will he be satisfied continuing to be on a team that's not competing? And then you have to look at the other side of it, right? What if the Raiders decided, hey, let's not send Max Crosby away, yet. Let's see if we can keep him for a year, right? Play with the money a little bit. The cap is a little bit flexible. Spread some of that money around and maybe try to trade him in the middle of the season. Maybe try to trade him next year, right? So when he's feeling a little bit better, maybe when he feels healthier, we can still get closer. We're probably not in the pick first round pick range anymore. That's probably off the table, totally off the table. But maybe we can get closer to that if we hold on to him longer and keep him throughout the year to see if he can get his health back and be as dominant as a pass rusher as he is.
Well, that's certainly going to be the question for the Raiders going forward. The recovery window for Max Crosby is about 4 to 6 months. His surgeon, Dr. Mills, says that he's ahead of schedule. Player isn't ahead of schedule when it comes down to big time injuries, and that he'll be ready for the upcoming season. So
Yeah.
we'll stick around and see what the Las Vegas Raiders are going to do. This is my good friend Andrea Richmond. Again, she's sticking around for the rest of the show. And I guess, hey, best of luck to you, Raiders. Spot on Sports. We'll be back.